Hello, my name is Max. I'm the co-founder and CPO of CoScreen. And in this deep collaboration interview series, we're going to be talking to interesting founders and people who know how to work remotely and will help us add different perspectives on that. With me today, I have Sebastian Gabor. He's
Hi
the
there.
co-founder of Digitail. And Sebastian, yes, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, Max. Yep. So co-founder of Digitail. We started this 3 years ago. We're on an awesome journey of changing pet care, and thanks to Max and the team, we have awesome tools that we can use to continue our remote first mentality.
Thanks for that, Sebastian, and thanks for being on the show. Uh, can you tell me a bit about more, or can you tell me a bit more about Digitail and how you're organized around remote work?
Yep. So first on Digitail, so we're a team of pet parents and vets. We wanted to build a digital health card, which probably all the pet parents that are listening here are gonna understand why that's needed to stop using the pen and paper and all of that. That's currently the norm in the industry. But on our journey to build that, we realized that the vets are still using pen and paper, so we had to work on tools for that. So anyway, long story short, we're shaping pet care and building better tools for the industry. And the way we started from day one is by being a remote first team. So we want to prioritize on hiring the best people rather than hiring what we can in the area where we are. And of course, the first year. So for the first time when we became remote, actually me when I started working on remote was 2013. So that was way before Digitail, but we can go into that detail afterwards. But as of Digitail, we started remote first, and so we're split up in 6 cities, 3 countries. We have the challenge of being on 2 super different time zones, but that's better than how it was 4 months ago when part of the team was in Korea. So it was a totally different, like 3 different time zones that we were working on. And right now what we know that practically works is having the right tools, having the right meetings in place, and everyone working on their communication skills. If you have these three, you start having the benefits of actually having a team, but using the remote principles.
And so you went in founding Digitail, you knew that it would be a remote first company from the get-go. This had nothing to do with the pandemic coming or hitting you and you having to change the way of operating.
No, that just accelerated. And for the remote first companies, it came as a benefit because everyone else adopted this and saw that they were forced to see the benefits. Basically, that was what changed there.
You mentioned that the communication style is important. Can you elaborate a bit on what what are you looking for in, when recruiting team members, or what do you expect from them in terms of how they communicate?
Yeah, so communication is important in terms of we've worked with different people, the ones that are not as good as writing summaries, reviews, or reports, or having an idea well written, and they do better when they talk verbally or brainstorm with someone. But that works in different stages anyway. Like long story short is that you need to be both have good writing skills, but also verbal communication skills. And I
Yeah.
think the challenge with remote work, and correct me if I'm wrong, but transferring ideas from one person to another one, that's not the difficult challenge. But having brainstorming session in a
Mhm.
remote planned like scheduled meeting, that's the hardest thing that you need to do and to need to simulate in a remote first startup. So actually going back with the question to you, how do you do that?
So how do we do that? I'd say it's definitely something that I miss as well, not being able to meet up for offsites, and I do hope that in 2021 we'll be able to.
Hmm.
I'd say when it comes to creating that environment where we're allowed to brainstorm freely, I think first of all the way we document things is still very important because ideas they kind of need to travel differently. You can't, since you don't have this ability to have everybody in the same room at the same time. It's like you need to enable this way where you draft something, someone else takes a look, builds on those ideas, and that
Hmm.
just needs to be built into the team DNA, if you wish, that people are used to brainstorming in that way. Then I think there are a lot of good tools out there to help you do this, right? And I think it's mostly about creating a shared context so that you feel connected to each other. And of course, that's something that we are trying to do with CoScreen. Uh, in the sense that you can share anything very easily, and people can share different things at the same time. But I think there are other tools that can also help you with that. Thinking about like so Mural and Miro, that sort of are great at creating this shared type of canvas where ideas can be thrown out. So that's how we've been working with this. I think yes, you need to in real time try to find the tooling that helps you sort of recreate that together experience, but that you also get used to the idea of brainstorming asynchronously
Mm-hmm.
as a team.
Have
Uh,
you had the moments when everyone from the team was just joining, let's say Zoom or CoScreen, and even though they didn't have anything that they needed to talk, just for the fact of being on the other side and knowing that there's someone else there working in the team on, again, it can be different subjects or tasks, but at least knowing that there's a team next to them.
you know what? We don't do that. We do have users who do that, which I find very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They'll essentially turn CoScreen on when they get in the morning and use it sort of an open door policy. So I find
Yeah.
it very fascinating. Maybe something we should be doing more of. But I'd say we live that context is more sitting in Slack for us. That we're all online on Slack and we can chat with each other. I think it works though perhaps better when the team is not too large. We're 8 full-time people right now, and that's very manageable. But I imagine that
Mm-hmm.
as soon as your team goes too big, it just gets a bit too noisy in that environment. And perhaps you enjoy more having these type of audio channels open, right? That you can visit at any
Correct.
point in time.
We're
Yeah,
we're 8.5, and we did this. So being online, camera on, microphone off, but
yeah,
we didn't do it wide, like team wide. So we just did it with some people that prefer that and felt the need of being close to someone. And what's nice about that is that first, team chemistry and feeling like you're in the same place. And the second
yeah.
one, going back to the question of how do you optimize for brainstorming, that's the way you do it, because you end up working on
Mhm.
things and then you suddenly have an idea, and you just say it out loud and someone hears you and might spark a conversation, or at least there's a chance for some brainstorming, and that helped a lot. That was one of the things that was interesting.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating. And I think going back to things that you sort of over the course of time figured out around remote work, you mentioned a couple, but what were all the things that you feel like you've gotten right so far in terms of how you set up the team, in terms in the way you work?
Got it. Okay, so let's go through a few things. Before we go to the tool stack, let's go through a few things that we decided, like team-wise, that we're doing. So first, the meetings. So we have the recurrent meetings, and for this we have the daily stand-ups. That's mostly with almost everyone in the team at the moment,
Mhm.
because again, small team, so it works having those daily stand-ups.
How long,
Short, but
if I may ask? How long are
15
those?
minutes.
Okay, quick ones.
So we're sometimes they go longer, of course, but most of the time they're under 15 minutes, and it's mostly to catch up, say a joke, meet everyone, see that everyone is
Mhm.
happy, or and sharing what they're doing. And then we have the weekly. So every week we do a weekly meeting, beginning of the week, and that's an alignment meeting where we're just basically going back to the 18 months plan, seeing our KPIs, projects, sharing what we're doing, asking for help in the team. But it's mostly the time where you feel that you're part of a team and then other things are happening. It's not just you alone in your corner. Then we have, of course, the one-on-ones. We have learning sessions, and that's something that we do mostly on a monthly basis. And that's more non-formal. So it's not that things are formal in startups, but that's even more non-formal. So Friday evening or something like that, we meet and we share what we've learned during the last period. And then we try to simulate those team buildings, the offsites that we all crave for.
Yeah.
And we do, like, again, weekends, we just meet in the evenings with a glass of wine and a good mood, and we just like play games or debate or watch things, and or get to know what's something in someone else's location. Like, hey, let's discover today Kitchener, because there's only one member from there, so we're finding out more things about that. So these are like the top four meetings that we're having, and then of course everyone else joins a meeting when they need to. And as team members, we have time when we're available and time when we're not available. So we're encouraging everyone in the team to have like blocked schedule for like, okay, we're not talking with anyone. But then on the rest of the time, it's probably what you said with Slack, is that if someone has a question and someone like quick answers on the spot. So it's a more collaborative time frame for everyone.
Interesting.
So
and when it comes
that's in terms of meetings.
when it comes to these learning sessions, are those planned in advance, say they're on a specific topic, or it's something that just dynamically evolves? People will say mention what they've learned.
It's not a specific topic. It's more of a sharing, because this also helps you get to know the other person. It's exactly what you would have at a water cooler talk when, hey, I just read this cool article. What do you think? Let's debate about a topic. That transforms into, hey, this month I've learned these cool things. You're sharing, and then inevitably at the end of, let's say, each small presentation, someone else is going to ask something or they're going to disagree, and then you have a smaller debate. And again, this works a lot really well for the team chemistry and for the personal development of everyone. So it has two benefits.
Yeah, we should probably try that as well. I like that very much. And of course, with remote work comes challenges as well. And I think you mentioned a couple already, but what would you say are the key challenges you've come across and that you're working through?
So brainstorming was one of them. Another one that we found a pretty nice solution was sharing wins. Because when you're in an office, and early days we were, because we were again for 2, 3, 4 people and we were at the same place, but for example, when you manage to close a deal and you're super happy and you're like yelling or running in the office like, hey, we managed to do that. When you're in the office, you manage to share that type of emotions to everyone, but when you're remote, you can't. So what we did is on Slack we have a newsfeed channel where everyone is sharing any type of good news that they feel it's a good news. It can be just, hey, we published something, or hey, we released something, or hey, we have a new client, or anything. So that's the area where everyone shares things, and it's super nice. And then another one, which I can't say that has been adopted team wide, but using Loom to record things and share. It can be ideas. It can be so for example, reading an article like, hey, this is something that I feel we should all learn, just like quickly putting down some points, putting in a Loom and sharing it with the entire team. So using that type of asynchronous video sharing worked pretty nicely for us.
And we use Loom as well heavily, by the way. Find it very useful.
Loom, and you also mentioned Miro, which that's again one amazing tool for remote teams. But I think the skill that you need to work on is drawing the graphs and the legends and the maps and doing all of that proactively and maintaining them, and then using that all the time in the conversations. And we learned this even more during the fundraising, but now it became a standard thing. Like, hey, if we're talking about something, we know the subject, I'm sharing. I definitely have either an Excel file or a Miro or a picture or something that gets shared, because inevitably a lot of people are visual first, so it's hard to follow an idea if it's only like words, or you can be the best storyteller. The picture will help you a lot when you have it as a base of the conversation. And there was actually an interesting talk I can share with you afterwards, with the importance of maps and describing ideas, concepts, and instructions. And they made he was making a parallel to, imagine during the war, the general having to tell, okay, we're going to go in front, then we're going to take a left, then we're going to attack to the right, and then we're going to go left again, and things like this, rather than using a map and showing the exact spots where you're going. And just an easier way of communicating.
And that's something you do through Miro, or
Miro is the best for that. So Miro, so going back to the tool stack, so we have Miro. Well, let's go Slack, Zoom, of course Jira, and all the other ones for the tech side. HubSpot for the sales one, but so Miro, Notion. I think that's our core. Everything is in Notion. Then on the tech side, so tech stack, there's a few more, but CoScreen, and we can go in details like how do we use that afterwards. So just keep it there as a point. So Zoom, yeah, that's actually the top ones that we're using.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to how we're set up. We use Clubhouse instead of Jira for keeping track of our stories and all the engineering work, but otherwise, no, very similar.
Got it.
We talked a bit already about balancing, say, synchronous versus asynchronous communication. Like, what's the balance in your case? How much time do you spend asynchronous versus synchronously today?
So besides the meetings that are recurrent and are set in the calendar, the rest is asynchronous. At the moment, we don't have that challenge so much because there's just one team member that's on a totally different time zone. But
Yeah.
even in that case, we managed to sync. We have at least 6 hours together, even though it's again startups. You do end up working more, so we have a
Mhm.
big chunk of the day synced. But I think the challenge there, at least the way we plan to tackle that, is again we are focused on flexibility, so everyone should be the owner of their own agenda and doing things
Mhm.
whenever they want to, as long as we're delivering on the things that we're promising. But the only challenge there is to have that 2, 3, or 4 hours every day in which everyone on the team is there, because if not, it's insane to schedule meetings sharing
Mhm.
ideas, and if you have a question that's a blocker, yeah, nothing is going to move for 24 hours.
How
So
many time zones are you split over right now?
so there's two, but they're in Europe, and then there's the third one, which is on the East Coast, on yeah, in US.
Yeah.
So that's the one, and we're gonna add the San Francisco time zone pretty soon. But it's still doable because you do have a big chunk of the day. Also, but you need to help everyone in the team if it's the first time that they're doing remote. You need to help them in terms of tips and tricks on. And there's a lot of Twitter questions and Quora, and you can find them everywhere. But
Mhm.
there's tips and tricks on how you can adjust to that, as in waking up morning, like early morning, or splitting up the day into when you're doing individual work versus when you're doing teamwork. So there's a few tips and tricks there.
For sure, and I would love to know some of those as well.
Yep, I can share.
How does, may I ask you, how does CoScreen fit into your remote collaboration setup today?
Got it. So we're still waiting for a Windows version of it, so we can use
Yeah.
it team wide. But until then, so we mostly use it in the tech department. Definitely, code review is one of the biggest ones where again you're jumping. So the tech members are jumping on the call and going through the code together. Brainstorming on ways to develop architecture. That's also another way of it being used. I have seen sometimes when it's being used instead of Zoom for a quick brainstorming call, especially in the times where everyone
Mhm.
is available for a quick chat. But that becomes mostly so because you start using it frequently. That's just an inevitable thing because it's a bit quicker than just creating the link or for Zoom or just doing a quick join. But yeah, so going back to this is definitely the code review slash pair programming, because we try to do that as much as possible, and then the brainstorming sessions for the tech side.
And, and what would you say is the main difference of using CoScreen versus any other type of screen sharing tool?
So it's optimized for that. I mean, you can see that it's just like quicker in terms of the things that you need to do, and because Zoom is doing an amazing job, and we've been using Zoom
Yeah.
without
Mhm.
understanding. So even the first time we shared the tool, it was hard for me to motivate the team and to explain to the team like, hey, why would we change? Because we're using this and we're used to it too in all the other calls. But once you start using it, there's just a small that counts. I mean, the small difference of, oh, this is a bit quicker, this is a bit faster. Then it's all the copy pasting. It's about editing. So for example, in Zoom, when you want to do the remote screen, because we're using Zoom, for example, with clients and working on their, like, showing things on their computer. But with, for example, CoScreen, we haven't got the chance to use it for that side. Let's see how that's going to work in the future. But again, the ability to quickly edit on your screen something and just having it in the same time without having the lag, it just feels that you're on the same computer, and that makes the whole of the difference for between using one tool and the other one. So it actually allows, again, it's not the same as being in the same room, but it's the closest thing to being in the same room with that team member.
Thank you.
I see there's a bit of smile. It means someone.
Yeah, no, of course. No, no, of course, I'm happy to hear. And you mentioned earlier, Windows client is something you will need to enable this with the whole team. That's something we're working heavily on, and I hope we'll be able to deliver to you very soon. So these are definitely things we're tackling.
Someone from the team will be pretty happy because they saw it at the colleagues that they're using it, and they were like, "Okay, wait, we're gonna do this together." And then they found out that you can't. So that was one of the challenge there. But
Yeah.
it probably it's a challenge that most companies have, because especially when you're a startup, you're not the ones that saying, "Hey, everyone is going to use a Mac," and everybody's using different tools. So that's going to be an important piece.
Yeah, definitely. And it was one of the, I'd say, when we announced this on Hacky News for the first time about a year ago, that was the main complaint we got already back then. But I'd say because we're the way CoScreen is built and how integrated it is with the operating system, I'd say that's also what creates the challenge of sort of, or the hurdle of going to additional operating systems. But it's definitely something we're doing, and we're looking forward to delivering that to you.
Awesome.
Okay, so looking at okay, with 2020 is behind us. It was, I'd say, a very different year from any others, especially we're almost less all knowledge workers were forced to work remotely in some capacity. Now we're going into 2021. There's vaccines are being rolled out, and I'm wondering, like, what are you most looking forward to in 2021, and how do you think you will evolve the way you work?
Got it. Well, I'm smiling because it's by far, I have it. I just seen it because we did the weekly and we went through the 18 months plan. It's the team building. That's for
Yeah.
around June. And hopefully we're going to be able to travel by then, because we haven't seen each other face to face in a really long time. And that's the thing that everyone misses the most. So yeah, the ability to do offsites and to actually meet in person, that's going to be one of the things we're looking forward for this year. But then what's I think interesting is how many of the new habits that we've got, how many of them are going to stick. That's one of the curiosities that I have for the upcoming year. Again, we're a bit in a bubble because the vet space, the pet care space was something that wasn't affected, or if it was more positively affected in terms of efficiencies and telemedicine that came out, and more people relying on it. So it wasn't just the fact that it kept business going, but it gave access to people that were super remote in areas where vets weren't able to get. That now they have access to at least a vet that can give them advice and to know some next steps. So those are like the benefits that maybe not everyone sees, but they're happening. So yeah, definitely curiosity would be this one, to see how many of these stick. And again, depending on the industry. So for us, also conferences was something that we're missing a lot, and meeting with clients. Because again, we're in a we're like tech startup, so everyone is super tech friendly. But with some of the clients that we have, they're not that tech friendly. But so regardless of how many tools we're gonna add there, it's not necessarily something that's gonna improve the communication. So we just need to be face to face again to be back on track.
Perhaps we'll see a boom in team offsites. But I also tend to feel that traveling might not go back to the way it was. I think we'll be traveling, but traveling more for the right reasons. We won't be traveling just to do meetings or just to do work on certain topics. But when we do travel, it's really because we see the value in seeing people face to face and creating that stronger social bond. In the case of CoScreen, half of the team I haven't even been able to meet in person. So I'm very much looking forward to getting to know these people properly, even though I feel like I know them already remotely, but it's always a
Yep.
different setting, right?
Yep. And also,
yeah.
so also in sales, for example, because nobody talks about that part too much, but in sales, it's not a level playing field. And now it is with remote work, because if you're not in the same city, but you have an amazing solution that you want to give to a client, you now have the same chance for chat time with that specific client as the person in that same city. So that gives, again, level playing field. And also it removes all the inefficiencies, because, for example, when we were doing field sales, you can see a maximum of 6, maximum 12 clients a day, because you need to go from one client to another one. But when you're in a remote environment, you can have the exact efficiency. At past, you finish the meeting, you can join the other one. You don't need to have 1 hour traveling between locations.
I mean, and that's a very interesting point. Do you think that clients will also prefer to do these sessions remotely because it sort of uses up less of their time? I mean, or will this sort of uneven playing field come back as people get vaccinated? And
probably. So that's one of the curiosities I have, but I think probably yes, because as a client, you get so it's a nicer experience when someone comes to you, but they don't take into account the effort of someone coming to them, right? And that doesn't translate directly in a cost, in a higher cost that they see. So it's tricky. I mean, we don't have the tools to prevent that. Probably it's gonna, based on human psychology, it's gonna come back just because of the comfort of the client. But ideally, at least some of them, they're gonna understand. They will see that it was also the same level of interaction, or that they're getting the same result also with a video call. So hopefully, at least a big part of the clients will understand that, and will keep the good, efficient habits of having remote discussions from time to time.
Yeah, which is of course a huge benefit if you're a startup, you constrain on resources, you cannot have all these sales reps in every region.
Also with fundraising, right? Because you closed the fundraising before COVID, no, if I remember correctly.
So yes, we did before COVID. Still, a lot of those conversations. Well, actually, we got our lead investor before COVID hit in terms of pandemic, but many of the angel investments we closed afterwards, and those conversations were all through Zoom and Google Meet. So
that, for example, is another positive side effect, at least for startups, right? Because there were a lot of startups in this period that did all the fundraising online. They had absolutely zero meetings. And this really makes it, again, a level playing field for the startups that are not in Silicon Valley or not in the hotspots, and they can actually have conversations. And because, again, as an investor, there's a lot of subjectivity to it. And of course, you're gonna like a bit more the person that's next to you, because you had the chance to see them, how they're clumsy or not clumsy, or what's happening there, and a lot of body language that they can pick on. While on the video part, again, if you're from a different city, you have the chance to have, and the same, basically what I'm trying to say is that you have the same top of mind time in the investor's mind, without having an extra, someone that's knocking on the door and stealing a bit of 10 more minutes or anything like that.
So you feel this was a great benefit to you in the fundraising exercise? You obviously being based in Europe, right?
Yes, definitely. So it gave access to more conversations.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sebastian, for participating to this interview series. It's been a true pleasure.
Pleasure is mine.
And of course, wish you all the best in 2021. I hope you have a blast at that long overdue team offsite that you're planning.
Yeah, can't wait.
Do you know where you'll be going? Any final?
No, not yet, because we're waiting. So again, depending on how it goes, because what you said is right. You're gonna see an uptick in company offsites. So if you're booking it early, you're gonna save some money there. But the problem is that you don't know yet where and how and when the traveling is gonna be allowed. So we're still waiting a few months until choosing the spot there.
But the final tip is book early.
Yeah, that's definitely the earliest you can.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Thank you. Congrats to the team. So let us know when you launch the Windows version. And yeah, so thanks again for all the good hard work that you're doing there, and keep us updated.
Thank you very much, and yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this interview series. And I'm sure our listeners will learn a lot